Good afternoon, little hoes. My name is Kristen and welcome back to my channel. Planes going over. We'll just wait for it to go by. It's loud. Bye. The title of today's video probably explains a lot. Disappointments and dark horses. So, it's political season. For better or worse, ready or not, it is here. The term dark horse, well, what does it mean? It's most commonly used, obviously, in politics and campaigns. It is a candidate or competitor about whom little is known, but who unexpectedly wins or succeeds. I thought this would translate pretty well into the world of plants. And today I wanted to discuss both spectrums, plants that have disappointed me, who have just not lived up to the hype or for whatever reason failed or is not appealing to me for a reason. Dark horse plants are going to be those that either I went into owning them with a notion that it would be more difficult and so surprised me by being easy, or plants that I bought on a whim, wasn't totally in love with, but have since become enchanted by them. Or even those plants that are just doing so well that it surpassed all expectations. So let's get into it. I will be keeping the plants in situation and just going around and showing you, you know the drill. So come with me and let's start with the disappointments and then work our way into the dark horses. So this is a plant that was, or still is, I should say, fairly popular. The Paelia Peppermintis. It gained some popularity a few years ago, and I'm sure you guys will remember how exciting it was to finally find one in garden centers locally and bought one. Well, I did too. To be honest, this thing has been on the struggle bus since I got it. It is constantly being dramatic. It started out having some really nice, the typical round leaves. And as I've had it, I've noticed it really just doesn't take well to most things. It doesn't like super bright light because it will burn. It doesn't like it either too root bound because it will wilt, or in too big of a pot because it'll just be stunted and have too much room and not know what to do with itself. I will say I like how the leaves are round, and I do rather enjoy the barky stem on it, but that is kind of where it ends. I feel bad getting rid of it because I do think overall it's a pretty rad plant, but I am losing interest. I know it's not right to compare, but some people have such magnificent specimens that seem to grow without any care in the world, and I am not one of those people. So, I am disappointed with that. Alright, entering the grow tent. Oh, look, it even has mealybugs. How fascinating. This is the Cerapedia ampliada. I got this, I want to say a couple years ago, on Etsy, along with my first start of Cerapedia sandersonii. Sandersonii is obviously doing great, one of my faves. This little dude is just so unhappy. I think I recently overwatered it a little bit, so that is why it is currently struggling. But I repotted it into a little terracotta. I've let it dry out, and I also put it in my little greenhouse because I've noticed that at least with the Sandersonii, it appreciates humidity but dry feet. So I'm trying to get it to recover / do something. My main gripe with this plant is that it is so slow for me and hasn't done much. It has doubled since I've got it, but that's not saying much since it's so small. That being said, I do think humidity is perhaps the key for this species, if not majority of the Cerapedias. I gave a small portion of this to a local learning facility, greenhouse, and theirs is doing fantastic. I probably only gave them a couple of segments, maybe a couple inches total, and it is already probably the size of my plant. I haven't seen it recently, but last time I did, a couple of months ago, it was darn near as big as mine is. So I think that the humidity is a huge factor. I'm kind of disappointed with it in comparison to all my other Cerapedias, but I'm going to try it in here and see if maybe my speculation is correct and it just needs a little bit more humidity. This is my Metanilla magnifica, and I did have Gregory Hambali. I rehomed him because he was so miserable. And I'm sorry to say that the magnifica is also kind of miserable. There were some little cuttings in there, there were some seedlings in here, and then that was a cutting I took. This is just such a dramatic plant, and I feel that only people that live in humid climates or have a greenhouse to devote to it can get it to grow successfully. That's just not me. It is dramatic. It started out doing really great. I had it in the bathroom and the humidity was just right. It was happy. It kept putting out new growth during the warm season, but I had to move it out of the bathroom because it was getting so big and shrubby that there just wasn't space enough for it. That was where it started to go downhill. I moved it into the living room here, and it quickly started defoliating. So I was worried because I also repotted it at the time that it wasn't getting enough sunlight, so I moved it to the sunroom where it's stabilized. It didn't really do much, didn't really put off much growth, but it was stable. I had to move it outside in the spring because of the sunroom situation, and it quickly defoliated and lost all the leaves, and then started to sprout back with more. I recently brought it in because it's getting cold. It's autumnal weather here now. I think I might try and rehome him, maybe to that local greenhouse. It's such a disappointment, and I had such high hopes, but I think that based on how specific its needs are, how much room it takes up, it's just not for me. You guys will know it. It is my Alocasia poly, and it has that age-old problem of spider mites. I mean, that is just in recent weeks. Look at how bad that is. I feel really bad for wanting to get rid of it because I do enjoy it. It is a cool plant and it's trying. It has tried its best to recover from the blitzing I have done a few times trying to get rid of the spider mites. And, I came to the conclusion a long time ago that Alocasias, Colocasias were spider mites and just not something I wanted to get into for that reason. I don't really foresee myself getting a whole lot more of them / any. I think I may try a Cupria one day and that's about it. But it's a disappointment. Oh, if you guys are wondering, I've got a crock pot with pulled pork. So that's that hissing and burbling. But it's a disappointment. I'm disappointed in myself that I forget to treat it frequently. Even just washing off the leaves, I'm sure would help. I'm just not into plants that have spider mites. It just seems inevitable with certain ones, and I just don't want to deal with it. So this is a disappointment for me, and it also makes me disappointed in myself. This is one I think is still quite popular on a lot of people's wish lists, but quite frankly, I'm not impressed with it. It is obviously the variegated string of pearls. Unlike my normal string of pearls, which is completely fuss-free for the most part, except needing extreme high light, this dude is finicky as fuck. If I put it in too much sun, the white variegation on it burns, and the whole thing quickly gets stressed out and starts to get naked vines. I've played this game with it for quite a while, and this is probably as good as it's ever looked, except for, obviously, when I first bought it. It doesn't grow fast. It doesn't trail fast. It's particular about the lighting, and obviously if I put it in too little of sunlight, it will continue to go bald and not produce much. And I definitely don't want to overwater in less light because there's not as much evaporation. It's picky. Yeah. I'm not impressed. I will keep it and see if maybe when it gets a little bit more mature, it will sort itself out. But a definite disappointment again. Stefania erecta. I had such high hopes for you, buddy, and you let me down. This is one of two bulbs that I got last year from Thailand, and I admittedly didn't put it in enough humidity the first time around to get it to pop out of dormancy. So this spring, I did the baggie method, put them in soil, in a baggie, fairly damp to increase humidity. And it did pop, and it did grow, and grow it did. But, friends, there are no leaves on this plant. No matter what I have done, it has not put out any leaves, and that's half the fun of this plant, are those cool, circular leaves. Nada. Not a single leaf. There wants to be some leaves. A month and a half ago or so, I put Mr. Stefania in the sunroom in hopes that bright sunlight would get those leaves to develop. It hasn't helped at all. So maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe it's just humidity it needs in abundance, both to get it out of dormancy and to get the leaves to pop. So any tips, guys, let me know. But I had such high hopes, and it let me down so hard. Mr. Lemon Lime Philodendron, and I think this is domesticum. Did you hear my hips pop like an old lady? It's very odd, this one, and it started out great. I got it this year, over summer. Started out looking amazing. Stop fighting! Jesus Christ, cats. Anyway, it was doing great. I took it outside for the summer, and it continued to do great. And then I brought it inside, and it has since rotted some tips, dropped some foliage, and done whatever this is here. I think it's probably just sulking from being moved around so much, and especially from being moved outside where it was so happy to indoors. But I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have even bothered with this one. I've wanted it for a while. It's cool, but it's not impressing me right now. I will let it take some time to recover from my abuse. But still, kind of, not what I anticipated. This is a very sad sisis discolor, which, yes, it does need to be watered. I've said it many times, this thing is a humidity whore, and you will notice a bunch of vines abort if you do not provide it with that humidity. Well, it was in the bathroom. It was terribly, terribly root bound, so I potted it in this. And I feel like, 50 gallons is a minimum for this thing. Not really, but it's still drying out very fast, and I didn't have room anymore in the bathroom where it was happy. It was getting that humidity, so I'm transitioning it to the sunroom. I don't know that it's gonna be happy in here since it's dry, but this is one of the few places I have available for it right now. If you have a humid situation to devote to it, then go for it. If not, maybe steer clear. It's gorgeous, yes, but it's fussy. And it also, I hate to say it, is a messy plant. I hate being one of those people that say a plant is messy. Obviously, it's messy. It's a living thing. Most living things are messy. But when this thing gets dry, even when just the older foliage, it's time to die, they just drop everywhere. And unless you have it literally positioned over a trash can, they're just going to go everywhere. The cats are going to play with the leaves. They're going to end up everywhere. So this is just not what I expected. And it went from top of my list to my shit list. So this is my painted ladyphilodendron. This is honestly one of the weirdest plants. It's just so weird. The specimen I have, not painted lady itself. This was one of the first plants I ordered online after I started to get into houseplants. This I got on Amazon, and I can't remember if it was from Indonesia, Thailand, something like that. It was imported. It took a while, but got to me in great condition, and it has grown quite a bit. However, its growth pattern has been so weird. I started out with this great big stem, and this portion of it was the crown, the foliage. But this right here is the tiniest little stem supporting all of this. It's so tiny and so top heavy. I decided to try air layering it. My friend Julia at Good Life Green Tropic said that she tried to propagate this just sticking it in sphagnum, and they rotted. So I figured I would try air layering and see if that did well. I'm trying to encourage some growth here so I can lop it off, and then lop it off again right there. And then after I started air layering, this little root, side shoot root, popped up. So this is literally the craziest, most gangly, odd-looking plants I have. And I do enjoy Miss Painted Lady. This variegation is only achieved in bright light. I did have this in the living room, and it was very dull. It was, probably like this type of variegation in the living room where it is admittedly quite dark. So it's a very particular plant, and I think the specimen I got is exceptionally odd. So it's not what you see on Instagram, at least my plant. It's not that big, beautiful, chunky girl. She has polio. She's on crutches. She's got some issues. I still enjoy her, but it's not what I expected. Last plant on my disappointment list, Cebu blue epiprenum. I've tried several times already to film this portion. I just don't know quite how to explain myself. I like this plant. I like the silver coloration. It's very unique and I enjoy it quite a bit. However, this plant is very dramatic with the watering. And yes, it is in a very congested hanging basket with quite a few plants, I imagine, stuck in there. But it's just so thirsty all the time. I have to water it at least 3 times a week in the heat of summer to keep it looking nice. This is what 1 week between waterings looks like for fall time right now. I appreciate it, what it looks like, but it is so thirsty and needy. I just can't quite keep up with the watering on this, and I'm sure if I put this in a spot that's a little bit more accessible, it would be better, but it's not quite as carefree as I expected. I like it, but just be aware, guys, if you get it, it's going to require a lot of water. So put it somewhere you're going to be able to quickly water it when it looks a little bit wilty. Now, let's move on to the positive. Let's move on to the dark horses that have impressed me. This one is the Peperomia tranervis bicolor, and I believe I got that the beginning of this year. Honestly, I wasn't really intending to get any more peperomia at this point in time. Peperomia were kind of, again, on the shit list, and I had just had so many bad experiences that I was reluctant to try it again. But I decided to. Those silvery leaves just called to me, and so I picked one up, and it really has been rather impressive. It's wilty right now. I've plucked a couple of branches off that kind of not looking so great, but overall, it's carefree. It's one of the species that is totally fine drying out. In fact, this thing's bone dry, and it's been a while since I've watered it. It's cool with it. It'll tell you when it's dry, but for the most part, I'd say it's one of the easier peperomias I've grown. This is kind of the definition of a dark horse plant. I didn't expect to like it, but it won me over through the persuasion of not being dramatic. Next on the dark horse list is a hoya. Yeah, guys, a hoya. You know I have terrible luck with hoya. I can't really keep them alive well, and the ones that I do keep alive don't really thrive, don't grow much, don't impress me. Well, this little dude is all of those things. He is easy, fast grower, and he likes me. He likes me, guys. This is Hoya kaminiana. I believe that is how you say it. I got this last spring at SCC and Spokane Community College, for those of you who may not know, has an amazing greenhouse program where they propagate all these cool and rare plants and sell them for such amazing prices. As you can see, that little tag, $5. If you guys are near me, go check them out. Go support them. They're awesome. Their people are awesome there. I got this plant here, and this is probably the reason I don't give up on Hoyas or chuck the Hoyas that I currently have. This point all the way there, and that point all the way there, and pretty much half that stem in the back is all new growth from this year. This is the exception to all Hoyas. I have great luck with it. I really enjoy that there's one Hoya that doesn't hate me. So this is another great example of a dark horse plant. This is a Calathea latifolia, or rattlesnake calathea. This is one of the first that I start out with, / I think this was the first calathea I got, and it gave me way too much confidence in calathea that they were easy to grow, because this guy is easy. This is one of the easiest houseplants you could possibly get. It is totally fine drying out. It's totally fine with low humidity. It's even fine with full sun, because this sunroom, trust me guys, it gets hot, it gets sunny. It's a champion. This is a cool plant. In comparison to the other calathea I have grown, a dark horse, because everyone else in its genera has proven to be less than impressive. He is by far king of all the calathea. Africa. Yeah. Since I talked about the rattlesnake, I have to give a mention to this guy. This is Calathea zabrina, and this is not him at his best. This is him being very dry and just getting watered a half hour ago. But, my dudes, he is surviving. He doesn't look his best. He probably looked a little bit better in the bathroom. But for a calathea, I am still kind of impressed. And this is the reason I don't get rid of him, because he should be dead. It's not very humid in this section of the house. It is a spot I forget to water him constantly, and he bounces back from the lack of adequate watering. Sure, the leaves are spotty and brown, but he's making it. He is telling me, I'm not giving up on you. Don't you give up on me. I hope this shows up even a little bit. This is the mottled form of Syngonium podophyllum, and it starts down there and it's all the way up there. Why am I putting this on the dark horse list? Because I didn't think I would like it when I bought it. It was kind of a spontaneous decision to grab it. It was variegated, and I am totally into most things variegated. I picked it up at SCC for pretty cheap. And to be honest, I never liked Syngonium before this guy. I thought they looked weird. I didn't care for the sort of white or pink or brown or whatever that I saw in a lot of nurseries, the common sorts, I will say. This guy changed it for me. Syngonium is now one of those genera that I could see myself collecting a lot of different forms of, and even this year I kind of started collecting more weird species. And I love my mottled Syngonium now. This is one of the easiest plants I grow as far as aeroids, and it doesn't require a lot of humidity. So carefree. I love it. I'm very happy that I decided to pick one up, even though I wasn't really expecting much of it or expecting to even like it. This is Peperomia prostrata. I want to say last year I got it, and I even mentioned at the time that I thought I would kill it, that it looked difficult and something beyond my capabilities to take care of. I was so wrong. This plant was probably the one that helped me come up with the idea for this video, because I went into this thinking I would kill it, thinking it would be picky and dramatic, and I was so wrong. It is a little dusty. I need to go in and maybe wash off some of the older little buttony babies. But that's it. That is really my only gripe with it. It's easy. It is totally cool with me underwatering it, and has rewarded me recently with a bunch of new growth tendrils here. I am not sure if it just really appreciates the more naturally humid climate in my bathroom. That could be why it's happy in here. I love the little detailed modeling on there. It looks so cool up on my shelf, just trailing down. I hope to get it to trail some more. I even have propagated it and put some in the terrarium, and I'm hoping to kind of get it to trail down some of the rocks in there. It's awesome. I can't say enough good things about that little guy. The polar opposite of the poly. This is Alocasia zabrina reticulata, and I am shocked I haven't killed it. I thought several times as I owned this plant that I would kill it for sure. I wasn't doing anything right. I got it last year from the People's Plants when that was still a thing. It was down to just this leaf over winter, and I was pretty sure it was on its way out. But then the wondrous spring happened, and the warm temperatures really helped revive him, and it produced all these leaves over the spring and summer. This is the newest leaf, and it is so cool. The stems are amazing. I don't know if I can keep this alive long term. I look at it every day and say to myself, how have you not fucked this up? I haven't, though. It is super impressive that it is doing so well, and I, knock on wood, don't see any pests. I'm not sure if maybe it's just because I have a tendency to wash the foliage on this quite a bit. I wash my hands, I use my damp fingers to just rub the leaves. Maybe that helps prevent it. I don't know. But he's alive. Lastly, on my dark horse list is the Ring of Fire Philodendron. And it's kind of interesting about this because it went from my disappointment list to my dark horse list. And this idea for the video I came up with probably early this spring, but just never executed until now. And in that time, it went from one list to the other. The reason it was on my disappointment list was because it was just not doing anything, and I honestly almost killed it last winter by overwatering. I did have it in what I thought was some good soil, but it was just too heavy. It was the aeroid soil that I did a video about. And while that might be fine for some aeroids, it's not the ticket for everyone. And this guy, I have an almost 50-50 potting soil and perlite. And I stuck it in this window last winter because I noticed it just wasn't doing good, and the soil stayed moist, but it looked like it was wilting. So I took it out of the pot, and surprise, surprise, we had root rot going on. So I repotted it to terracotta, did the soil change, put it in this window because it's bright but pretty diffuse, and slow but sure, it recovered, and it went crazy. All of this section here is new growth from just this spring summer. I was probably down to the sad cut off leaf, 1, maybe 3 leaves, and the rest has been all him this year. This is a success story. This is a turnaround story. And to top it off, I have a brand new leaf going to be joining us pretty soon. So, yeah, I couldn't be happier. This is a definite success story. That will be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, would love to hear your disappointments and dark horses for plants. Hope you all are staying safe, healthy, and sane. I will talk to you all very soon. Goodbye.